Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Recovery Channel. Have you guys ever noticed that Phil tends to get into some really deep stuff? At work, he calls it bringing the heavy. I want to tell him to lighten up sometimes. I'm confident by now you've seen Phil and I use different words at times. Well, this is a good example. He says bringing the heavy, and I say, I'm giving you the wonderful opportunity to build character and grow. In any case, let's get back to the basics and we'll wrap up step 9 by talking about how to deliver your amends. I also owe you guys the end to the story I started just a few weeks back, so stick around for that too. Back in week 37, we talked about the 3 options for doing your amends. In person, write a letter and send it, or write a letter and read it to your sponsor or therapist. Your homework was to decide which option you'd use for each person on your list. Keep in mind that we're only talking about the people on the Behaviors tab of your inventory. For the people on the Resentments tab, you're going to follow the process that Phil talked about last week. For those on your Behaviors tab, all 3 options have the same set of guidelines, and that's what we're going to cover today. We'll talk about making arrangements, preparing yourself, delivering the amends, and what to do afterwards. The next suggestion can save you and others a whole lot of unneeded grief. Here it is. The first thing you should do for anyone you want to make amends with or send a letter to is to ask their permission. You don't know where the other person is in their emotional world, and you owe it to them to respect their wishes when it comes to giving them an amends. You need to ask them if it's okay for you to do it. This doesn't have to be complicated. Just say something like, I've done some things to you that were wrong. I'd like to make amends and do what I can to try to make things right. Would you be willing to have that conversation with me? Or would it be okay if I sent you a letter? If the person says no, respect their decision and don't pressure them. Go to option 3 and write a letter that you don't send. If they say yes and you'll be doing it in person, then set up a time in a quiet place where you can both be free from distractions. In terms of preparing yourself, this is mostly about getting into the right mindset. For the difficult people on your list, we also suggest you do a practice run with your sponsor so you can refine your approach and make sure you're following the guidelines before you actually talk to the person or send the letter. By the right mindset, we mean one of humility, acceptance, and surrender. It's a mindset where we take full responsibility for what we have done, regardless of the other person's part in it. It's a mindset of empathy where we feel the impact of what we did to them from their perspective. I know it's a little contradictory because we've told you many times that steps 8 and 9 are about healing from your past and moving on from it, but the words of amends itself are about them. We let go of our defensiveness and the temptation to justify our actions. We are 100% honest with ourselves. We don't shame ourselves, but we try to really understand the impact of our actions. And finally, we let go of all expectations of the outcome. This time of preparation makes the next part easier because we're in a mindset where the words will come more naturally. If you're feeling angry, defensive, like you're the victim, or are carrying resentment towards the person, that is not the time to do your amends. Make sure you're in a good headspace because you really need to be coming from a place of humility. Okay, so you've asked for permission and you've gotten yourself in a good spot emotionally. Now let's talk about the amends itself. The amends has 4 basic components: acknowledging the harm done, making a sincere apology, offering to make things right if that's possible, and a commitment to how things will be different going forward. Remember, we are not asking the person for forgiveness, understanding, or anything else. The fact that they are allowing us to give our amends is all we ask for, and we are grateful that they are giving us that opportunity. So let's break down each component and we'll provide some examples. Acknowledge the harm done. This is actually harder than it sounds. When done effectively, it's more than just saying, "Here's what I did, and that was really bad. I'm sorry." The harm to the other person might have been deeply emotional and scarred them in ways that even they are not aware of. It's not your job to be their therapist, but do take some time to try to imagine the impact of your actions. Did you lie to them? Manipulate them? Take advantage of their trust and then betray it? Did you make them think that they were the problem? Did you lash out in anger rather than admit you were wrong? Did you cheat them out of something? Were you unfaithful? This is where empathy comes in. Take some time to put yourself in their shoes. How would you feel if you were treated that way? What if someone lied to you that way, or they cheated on you? What if they manipulated you or took advantage of your trust? What if they gaslighted you and then got angry every time you tried to confront them? How would that make you feel? What would that do to the relationship? How would you feel about the person that did that to you? Remember, this is time not to bury yourself in shame. This is so you can try to understand how the other person might feel. This is a great time to practice your mindfulness skills. Observe the feelings without judging them or yourself. Stay present, but allow yourself to feel the feelings. Once you've done this exercise, write down what came to you and work it into whatever you will say. Let's say you lied to your significant other about your drug use. When they confronted you, you'd lie and gaslight them. And when that didn't work, you'd get angry. The first part of your amends might sound something like this. When I was still using, I was really selfish and the addiction was running the show. I lied to you a lot. And when you confronted me, I'd try to manipulate you and ask you why you didn't trust me. When that didn't work, I'd get angry and I'd start yelling and insulting you like you were the problem. I don't pretend to know how that made you feel, but when I put myself in your place, I can imagine it must have felt pretty frustrating and hopeless. All the lying eroded your trust in me, and I can imagine that you may feel like you were alone in this relationship. Then my gaslighting may have made you feel like maybe you were the crazy one. Maybe what I was saying was true and you were just imagining things. And if that wasn't enough, you were insulted and blamed. That had to cause a lot of anger, fear, and pain on top of everything else. When you do a good job of empathizing with the person, it makes the apology more sincere because you're not just saying you're sorry for what you did. You're making amends for what you did to them. And remember, In your amends, there should be zero defensiveness, zero justification, and zero blame. Here's what that might sound like. I was wrong for all the pain I've caused you. You didn't ask for it, and you don't deserve it. I take 100% responsibility for my actions. I wish I could go back in time and do things differently. Do things differently so you would not have had to experience everything you've had to endure. But at this point, all I can do is express to you how deeply sorry I am, and I will do my best to ensure that you never have to go through that again. Remember when we defined making amends, we said it was about setting things right? Well, that's the next part. If possible, this is where we tell the person how you're going to do just that. Let the person know that you'll fix what you broke, pay back the money you borrowed or stole, or return what you took from them. In most cases, though, there's not something material we can replace or return. As much as we'd like to, we cannot repay them for the tears they've cried and the pain that they've suffered or the emotional scars. It's okay to acknowledge that. I wish I could somehow pay you back for all the pain I've caused. To somehow set it right. And this is where the commitment to future actions comes in. Maybe you can't set the past right, but you sure can do your best to not make the mistakes again. Being sober will make that possible. We don't make promises we can't keep, like, I'll never get angry at you again, but we can commit to something like this. I realize I can't change the past, but what I can do is try my best to make the future different. I am committed to my recovery and staying sober, and I will continue to go to meetings and work the steps. I will do my best to be honest with you at all times, and when I start feeling angry, I will share my feelings rather than lashing out. If that's not possible, I will call a timeout before saying something hurtful to you. I will do my very best to regain your trust through my humility and honesty, and I know it might be a very long time for the trust to be rebuilt. I'm okay with that. I can't promise you that it'll be perfect, but I can promise you that I will work hard to create a better life, and a part of that better life will be treating the people that I love with respect. I don't expect you to take my word on any of this. I plan to show you through my actions, and I'm inviting you to call me out when I'm not living up to what I'm saying here. So that's it. Acknowledge the harm you've done, make a heartfelt apology, offer to make things right, and commit to your future actions. Again, and we can't stress this enough, the amends itself is all about the other person and the impact on them. We take full responsibility for our actions without downplaying, making excuses, justifying, or shifting blame in any way. And we need to be prepared that they might have a strong reaction and lay into us. Don't get defensive. The best response to anything they say is to take a deep breath and say, "You're right. I understand." If you start to lose control, call a timeout. I really appreciate you being honest about your feelings, and I'm doing my best to just listen, but I can feel myself getting agitated, and I don't want this to take a wrong turn. I need to take a break, and we can revisit this a little later if you're okay with that. Again, for the harder people on your list, we strongly recommend doing a practice run with your sponsor. Even have them respond how the person might respond so you can practice keeping your cool or calling a timeout. We've provided some more examples in the workbook, so be sure to check them out. You don't want your amends to sound scripted, but sticking to the guidelines will help you keep from the areas you want to avoid. It's easy to stumble into minimization, justification, and blame. That's just being human. Finally, prepare yourself for what to do after you deliver your amends. If it does go badly, and even if it goes well, you're going to need support from people who understand the process. So let your sponsor know you will be calling them, or a trusted friend. Plan a relaxing activity where you can unwind. Go to a meeting, go for a run, hit the gym, have a plan. It's important. Okay, so I started a story way back in week 33, and I forgot to tell you how it ended. I had to add Phil to my amends list because I got mad at him for editing my corny jokes out of these videos and let him know I wasn't happy about it. So I gave him a call and, hey, what the hey? Phil, I wasn't done yet. Oh man,